So the Arnold Classic just took place over the weekend, and Rogue reminded everybody why it is the premier strongman show in the world. And it has been for at least 15 years. World started in the 70s. It was a TV show, and they created the sport and deserve all the credit for that. But the Arnold made the sport heavy, and it exposed the sport to an entire sea of people who would not have followed it or cared about it otherwise. This is something that Rogue's always been really good at. Because they have their hands in so many different pots, it's in their best interest to get as much transference from one piece of equipment to another or from one event to another. They want everybody involved. So that means putting strongman events in CrossFit. It means having powerlifting stuff that is more relatable to typical gym goers in strongman. They're trying to get as much growth and put as many of these events under one single umbrella as they could possibly do, and they're doing it really well. They still do the big overbuilt monstrosities like the Wheel of Pain, which was just an amazingly glorious contraption, beautifully designed. It was made after Conan the Barbarian, what the Conan's wheel should be. And the guys had to push it against constant tension for a minute straight, which is likely to give most of these guys a heart attack. So I loved watching that. But then they still take things like the deadlift and squat, and they'll use regular plates. They'll do it on a bar or in a setup that's more relatable, so there's a point of reference. And that's a pretty stark deviation from what strongman used to do, which is have like scaffoldings and rigged up Smith machines that would support like slot machines and casino girls on top. So it still is very interesting to see that weight in those types of events. But given how big gym culture is, and given that that is the now targeted demographic, it's not the average dude during the holidays trying to kill some time and avoid being with his family. It's somebody who's interested in strength sports, who has a history with it, who knows a barbell. And that is a much more compelling thing than doing these like Fred Flintstone type events where you don't know exactly what you're watching. So you could tell they took depth seriously. All of these squat depths were beyond reproach. Everybody hit depth here. It wasn't this very long contraption on the axle where they have the big barrels, where if you hit one side early, which happens like every rep, it knocks you all the way off to one side. This was a good, solid squat setup. Yes, the guys were wearing suit and wraps. That's in line with what powerlifting is and what it allows. But nothing was triple ply. These are single ply suits. Everything's to depth. Everybody's squatting in a manner that is relatable to most people. And you can absolutely compare this against the best single ply squats in the world. So everybody ended up here in the low mid 800 pounds. Martinez set a big message opening up with 901. And Martinez squats frequently. He has good mobility. He takes it seriously. So I knew he was going to be good here. I didn't know how good. So watching Martinez open up, I know he was sending a message here. He took it down under control, but it was not the easiest lift in the world on the way up. This is a bit heavier than what an opener probably should have been. And contrast that with Rob Kearney, who opened up at like 856 and then made a big jump to 930 and some change. Bobby Thompson put up a really big squat here. I didn't expect that from him. I knew he was a big deadlifter, but I wasn't sure what his squat was going to be good for. And then the show stealer, the thing that nobody expected, was JF Corone coming out. Corone looks like he has ass implants on his shoulders. You know that look some lifters get when they run out of place to put muscles, so it just starts growing out sideways? That's what he's got going on. He looks too big for his frame, and the guy has been in this for a long time. He's been world class for a very long time. One of like the gatekeeper guys who is always good but never in contention for the podium. And he has been chipping away year after year to where now his name is always brought up as somebody who's a threat. His deadlift has gotten exponentially better. His events have gotten better. So he's nasty. But he came into this squat event, and I think he put something in his IG about how eager he was to squat. He doesn't even look like he should be able to squat. I mean, look at his shoulders compared to his legs. Those are big legs, but Corone, his shoulders makes it look like he has chicken legs. He opens with well over 900 pounds. We would just watch people for an hour and a half struggle in the mid 800s. Moves it like an empty broomstick. Just moves it like nothing. It's not even there. Just says, I'm coming up. This bar is not getting in my way. Kearney pops up. He takes this big jump at 936. That surprised me too. I knew Kearney was strong. I didn't think he was pulling off squats in the mid 900 range. And then Martinez, him and Martinez ended up in this battle, and that was pretty cool to watch. So it's cool to see the heir to American Strongman. You're looking at him. You're looking at Trey Mitchell. These are guys that are known for being strong, known for being good, and that they're able to hang at the top. Shaw is probably going to make as many comebacks as he can until it's just obvious he can't compete anymore. He's never going to find his former glory again. But these young guys like Evan Singleton, they're on their way up. So I was really excited to see these guys go through this. Now, let's get to Corone's big one. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So I know it's easy to do the equipment math in your head and say, oh, he's probably getting 200 pounds out of the suit, and so did more than that in sleeves, and they weigh half as much as him, and on and on. Let me put it in perspective. Blaine Sumner is far and away the best single-ply squatter in the world. He has an 1130, I believe, which is the biggest single-ply squat ever done. And you have a couple guys in the 1100 range. A 1050 squat single-ply puts you top 10 all-time history of the sport. I don't think anybody can make the case that Corone doesn't look good for a 1050 single-ply squat in that setup. I mean, that 966 was nowhere near limit. It's a matter of how much experience does he have, how long can he train, how much does strongman training detract from a true squat peak. I genuinely think short term he would be good for low thousands without a problem. I think a year of dedicated training to that would put him in contention for a 1050 to an 1100 pound squat. I think Corone can say he is one of the best squatters in the world. Is he going in and setting the biggest squat of all time? Absolutely not. And I don't think you're going to see that as long as the squat is treated the way it is in strongman. If it was a more regular staple, I think you would see a lot more people showing up, and you wouldn't see people hitting these lower numbers. You can have a very big deadlift and not a very big squat. And the strong posterior is really what all of the events in strongman are based off of. So it's always going to be the king of the exercises with respect to what strongmen do. And I think because of that, strongmen are always going to be the king of the deadlift. If the squat got treated differently, watch this be a staple for the next 6 to 8 years, and watch strongmen come out with 1,000-pound squats, 1050 squats. Watch somebody hit an 1,100-pound squat. I promise you, if Rogue keeps up on this, that's where this is going. So right now, are you going to look at this and say strongmen are the best squatters in the world? No, but the fact that the floor for them is low to mid 800 pounds without having to specialize in it, without this being the staple that they primarily train for, I think that's pretty damn impressive. Now, the learning curve of the suit, none of these guys are slapping on a suit and getting the 200 pounds you think they might be. Yes, squat suits help immensely. Knee wraps are a good example of this. Most of you have squatted knee wraps at some point. If you put them on, you'll feel the tension and you'll feel the extra pop out of the bottom. Nobody's ever put on wraps and squatted 50 pounds more than their all-time best unless it wasn't a recent or true max. Nobody's immediately getting 50 pounds out of it. And the reason is there's a learning curve. Part of it is coordination, timing the movement. Part of it is adaptation. Your body will actually adapt around the wraps. And what that means is that your top end will develop more because now that's the limiting factor. And your bottom end will actually atrophy a little bit depending on how much time you spend in them. Because with all of the support at the bottom, that's not the spot that's taxed the most. That's not the spot you're disadvantaging now. So that gives you an extra boost, and now you get to exploit your top end. So the bottom range drops a little bit, the top end increases, and over time, your equipped lift will start to advance while your unequipped lift will actually regress a little bit. And that's what true specialization is. That's not what these guys are doing. So I would wager 50 to 80 pounds maybe is what these guys are getting out of the suit and wraps. Substantial, absolutely. But don't kid yourself into thinking that Corone moving 966 like a broomstick, that in reality, well, he's really a 750 squatter if you were to take all that away. That is not the case here, guys. Now, again, if they did start specializing in this because the Arnold and all the other shows mandated it, you might see guys pushing that envelope farther. But for right now, you can put a couple of these guys in the world-class category when it comes to single-ply squatting. And the amount of control they had and the fact that that had to be peaked in conjunction with dumbbell pressing and stone to shoulder and frame carries and everything else. I think it's impressive, and I think those numbers have a lot more room to go. Now, getting into the dumbbell I'm mixed with. I'm always torn with events like this because the dumbbell is very technical. It's like a parlor trick. So you do have to dedicate yourself to it and get good regardless of how strong a presser you are. It's better to be a strong presser, but you don't really need to be if you have a really good tight tuck and if you get a lot of leg drive, and you'll see how some of these guys fall into position. So I struggle because part of that is necessary in strongman. I would not advocate removing it, but I never take these events quite as seriously because I know it's very different than the events everybody does that everybody specializes in. So there's more about like, well, oh, if only so-and-so held it differently, if his technique was a little better, if only he could fix this one thing, he'd be world class. And a lot of it you see are guys that they just happen to fold into this particular conformation. And in my eyes, it takes away a little bit because it's less about the physicality and it's more about how well built you are for this event or how much time you've spent on it. Some guys just love doing it. You see they spend a fuck ton of time on it. But some of the best pressers in the world zeroed this event. To be fair, it's 100 pounds over it was 15 years ago when they used the inch replica. 172 pounds, clean once, press away. You get like Hugo Girard would do like 8 reps or something, I think. Now it's clean every rep, 275. That is absolutely bananas. And a lot of guys zeroed. You had Trey Mitchell, who could not get it balanced. He locked out 3 reps, but it was out to the side, so he couldn't hold it. You have a ton of guys struggling. You have the Stoltmans. I mean, Luke is a great presser. He was in contention for the log record at one point. He got 3. I mean, solid showing. His brother, the world's strongest man, zeroed it. And a lot of guys really struggled with it. Then you get to Novikov. Frickin' Novikov. And this is why he's quickly becoming one of my favorite lifters. It's not just that he's smaller compared to a lot of these other guys. It's that people instinctively think he's not as strong when he is just as strong, if not stronger. I mean, the numbers don't lie. Novikov not only has a motor, but he is technically dialed into this, and he's just so fluid and efficient. Novikov came in and ran through 7 reps. He actually missed his 7th, went, got some water, came back, and hit it on his 8th attempt. Blew everybody else away. Nobody got close, even remotely close. And that's where he put in that, that's where he put in his message. I mean, that's where he said to everybody, like, hey, I'm here. Like, this is my show. Martinez came up. Oudhaugen, Martinez came from Oudhaugen's gym, the training hall in Ventura. A little bit of controversy over whether or not Ode should have been judging him. Martinez' 3rd rep, certainly questionable. It was close. I might have given a down command. And that's, again, why I roll my eyes at one of these events, because there's play in the joints. Depending on who is judging, it's going to depend how much control you have to demonstrate. And something like that can be monumental in a show like this where the top guys are so close together. So a lot of people think that was a no rep. I can see that. I could also see why he got the down command. It was locked out. His feet were relatively planted. There have been a lot of times where guys are on their toes falling forward waiting for the down command. So that's not entirely unheard of with very odd objects. You're not going to have somebody do like a sandbag press or a natural stone press and hold a lockout with their head through. So then we get to the log. Poor Corone. Poor JF, man. He zeroed the dumbbell, and it looked like he was grabbing his shoulder. Comes in, does a routine 400-pound log, which everybody got 400 pounds. Cleans the log, gets a pretty easy press with 400, goes to his next attempt, the 420, and disaster strikes. That was hard to watch. In the dip, as his knees go forward, you see his patellar tendon pull up. You see his quad rip through his pants. He falls, the log falls on his leg. That was a bad time. And as far as I know, he got surgery right after, and I believe it was both quads ruptured. Ugly, ugly injury. I feel bad for him, and there's no way around it. This is a byproduct of the way guys peak for shows. It's not just training. It's not just recovering and body maintenance. A lot of it is the stuff you get to try to give you that little 2% boost within the weeks leading up to the show, and it dries you out and it makes you brittle and it lowers the rate at which collagen can synthesize. So muscles are getting stronger, connective tissue is getting weaker, and then shit like this happens. This should not be happening. So it's unfortunate, but that's the risk guys take. And it's part of the reason in this era, it's not uncommon to see patellar tendons go. It used to be biceps. You know, trying to curl a 900-pound tire makes sense why people lose their biceps. But routine shit like squats and presses and things you do in the gym, you should be adapted to. That goes in meets because guys are pushing the envelope closer to the meat. Substance use goes up, and that's where it happens. And it's really unfortunate. And I don't know what the solution is. I don't know that there is one. That might just be a feature of the sport. Corone's out when he was looking at probably the best he's ever looked. Then you see this run of 420, 440 logs. Martinez and Novikov at a 440. You see Stoltman coming in with a 470. Bobby Thompson was on his heels. He had a 450 that looked good. I watched Bobby Thompson take the American log record in Hilton Head last year. He chipped Rob Kearney's. It was 470 and some change. And he comes in, hits a 450. Stoltman with a 470, just showing he's the best in the world, or one of them at least. Thompson tries to chip him. He goes for that 480 and fails. So that was an exciting event. I really like the max effort events. I like the last man standing setup. Frame carry's frame carry. This event's gotten stale. This event's been in for a couple decades now. And it goes quick, which is nice. But this is another one I have a hard time with because you want to see the athleticism. You want to see these guys sprint with 900 pounds plus, and it's cool when guys do. So that does build up the drama that so many guys fail. But they're not failing because of the strain, because it's taxing your soul. It's literally because your fingers break open. And grip events are not my favorite. That's me. That's a personal bias. I don't care what you think. But this event has been in forever. A lot of guys zeroed because they couldn't hold on to the weight. Kearney, I expected to do a good run, and his skin ripped open. Once you lose a callus, there's nothing you can do. And it's that type of grip event. You actually have to wrap up your skin entirely in the handles. And if the humidity's just right, or if the previous events wore at your skin, tearing your calluses is normal. It's to be expected. So it is an interesting case. I understand you want to test grip in some things, and that's fine. But to say, okay, you can wear a suit in the squat, but not straps on the 900-pound frame sprint. I would rather see guys really load up and strain through a heavy carry than have this be their limiting factor. But that's just me. But then you have Martinez finished and Maxime Boudreau. That didn't surprise me. He's explosive as shit. He won the event just absolutely sprinting, and they were the only two to complete that. And because it's on an incline, that's another weird thing. I know it makes it harder, but once you drop it, you can't repick it. You know, nobody's repicking an 800, 900-pound frame on that plane. So that's another dynamic. It's you carry it all the way or you're done. Stone to shoulder, put this in the same category as dumbbell for me. Entertaining to watch, staple of the sport. I'm not suggesting it should go anywhere, but you're watching the best stone loaders in the world not move this thing. This is an awkward, odd, I don't know the exact weight. It's over, they said, I'm sure it's over 400 pounds. Awkward. Stoltman. Tom Stoltman has the world record in the Atlas stone. He loaded a 630-pound Atlas stone over a bar, for God's sakes. He could not budge this thing off the ground. He's equipped for it. He's conditioned. He's trained stone loads his entire life. He's the best in the world at this event. The awkwardness, the novelty, this comes down to who had the opportunity to practice with it. If you had the opportunity to practice on the stone, that's it. So that's one of the reasons I don't like these types of events, because it has an inherent bias towards whoever gets their hands on it first. And there's always somebody. There's always somebody who makes the trip, and that creates this really unnecessary gap. So you want people adaptable, and you want things like this to kind of take people out of their comfort zone. But I'm not a fan of this because as entertaining as it is, it doesn't get guys to line up the way you want them to. You want it lined up on physical ability. And if it's going to be this awkward thing, it needs to be that way for everybody. And that's always going to mandate that weight has to be lighter. Now, it did make for some exceptional drama. God, 630 stone, and he couldn't budge this. You get to Bobby Thompson, dominating it. Bobby Thompson, I mean, good stone loader, not known for being like the best in the world, right? handled it, got it up, put it where it needed to go. Trey Mitchell can load a 450-pound giant 22-inch Atlas stone without tacky. Guys, that is unheard of. That is nuts. I was talking to my buddy Nick Romero, who runs House of Power in California. And Nick has a deep, deep background. I want to say he was close to getting his, I want to say he got partway through med school, but knows a ton about everything, physiology, training, and so on. He's a nerd for the fine points of training theory and all of this. And he's looking at Trey, and he's starting to hypothesize, what are his lat insertions doing? Like, he has very high lat insertions. They don't come down low. So he's trying to put together this thread between Trey Mitchell's high lat insertions and having an ability to load 450-pound stones without tacky. But that's how freaky Trey is. Like, you don't see anybody at the top doing that. So there were a lot of guys that got, it was 10 points for extending with it, 100 points for shouldering. So you had to shoulder it. That's how you do well. So shouldering beat all the reps, just extending, right? A lot of guys zeroed, a couple guys got 1 or 2. And then you get to Novikov, and he's trying to catch Martinez at this point. And this is where the drama is. Again, I was pulling hard for Novikov. Not just the Ukraine crisis, just the guy is nasty. And he gets that one extension. They had 2.5 minutes to do this, by the way, which is way too goddamn long. But he took his time, looked at it, thought about it, positioned it, waited until there was about 20 seconds left, and did this. And that was one of the most dramatic things I had seen. I thought he had the show at that point. I knew Martinez was good at stones. I knew he was a freak. But I was also reasonably sure Martinez had handled this stone before. And I don't know to what capacity that made an impact. But Martinez didn't even look nervous. He came out, got a rep, secured his win. And I was happy to see this. I like when guys don't just do the bare minimum, even though I do the bare minimum. He won the event. He rested, did it again, easy double, only guy to shoulder it twice, and there it is. And that's why Martinez is one of the best in the world. There were a couple years of doubters. I was at the Fit Expo the year that Martinez got his pro card. He was a lot smaller. A lot of guys were saying he wasn't going to do anything. He's nimble, he's fast, he's mobile. He had all these things in his corner, okay, but he's not that strong, and you got to be strong. Martinez is strong. There's no doubt about it. Mid-900 squat, close to 1,000-pound deadlift, shouldering, 400-plus natural stones, 275 dumbbells for reps. Like, Martinez is strong. But Novikov, man, I don't know what he needs to do to put it together. If there's just a couple of little bits of being well-rounded. He's great overhead. Statically, he's great. He's fast. I think it's a matter of the way the wind blows that day. But I would like to see him get that 1% bit of improvement that'll put him above everybody's head, because the guy's gross. So it's cool. It's cool to have watched this. I went to my first Arnold show 15 years ago. I think I was a teenager, honestly. It might have been longer. I watched Zydrunas when he set his world record in the Apollo wheels, when he did 8 reps with like a 365 axle in 2 minutes. I watched the drama and how exciting it was, and I've seen the show get continuously heavier. So this is my favorite show. I haven't watched Worlds in probably 6 or 7 years. I always tune in to see what's going on, because this is where you get to see who's dominating, where the best of the best is. So my hat's off to Rogue. I love what Rogue's doing. It's incredible. They've really done something fantastic. I was just a little bummed that I wasn't able to get there this year. Next year, I will definitely be there for sure. But great show. Just fantastic show. So leave your comments. You think strongmen are the best squatters in the world? What do you think these guys would do if they didn't have to train for the sport? What do you think they could do today if they just had to go into a meet against some of the best? Leave your comments in the comment section. Check out the Facebook group, the Base Strength group. It's absolutely free. Patreon and the YouTube memberships. You can join and support my work. And don't forget to check out Base Strength, Peak Strength, Superior Deadlift. Superior Squat is coming down the pike. I'm working on that right now. Check those out on my store, on Amazon. Thanks again, guys, for watching. Until next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.